Hey everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Didn't get the videos I wanted to get out necessarily in this last week, but the videos we got out seem to be being received really well. This week I have a duty recorder video planned. Of course, the Raid Retro that I didn't release last week is on the schedule, and I'm getting working on that next Iron Man video. So that is what it's looking like on the docket. The Iron Man video probably won't be done this week, but we'll see. I mean, I already have enough footage for 2 more parts of that, and then I can get back to recording more of them once I get through all of my Step 2 Dawn Trail relics. It's a lot of tomes. It's a lot of tomes. But anyway, it's only like an hour and 20 minutes before stream, so I actually should probably get this going. Shout out to everyone supporting over on the Patreon. Nobody has to support support other than watching the video is obviously optional. But if you want to be a channel member or you want to join the Patreon, then you will be appreciated. I will say thank you. And with that, I say we get on to the Q&A. Like I said, I don't have too much time before stream begins, and I still got to do some things in the morning. All right, question number 1, hashtag some days with Mrhappy. Hi, Haps. Hi. The path to power on jobs is definitely critical to their identity. There doesn't seem to be much room for doing new things. Pretty much every job is some combination of timer-based and resource management. Some jobs have the more purely timer-based and have received a couple of resources to use freely, and most gauges now have a free use button for a longer timer in addition. For the most part, once optimized or solved, the resources effectively become timers in full uptime fights, where the charge is always generated at the same rate by the GCD, and you can only hold so much before overcapping. Same rules apply to the multiple charges on cooldown, so the only real differences are the opener, how a job handles forced downtime, and how punishing it is to die. Overall question, is there room for any other ways to access power in the current job design? There's likely to be giving timers more flexibility and giving resources more catch-up timers. I think you only see those as the only options because that's pretty much all the game has right now. There are plenty of other options that they can go with. The question is, will they? And they've largely moved away from those things in the past, things that are more proc-based, damage over time, actual full-on play-style alterations that they have moved, like I said, they have moved away from, and in theory could move back to if they really wanted to and they had the right solutions to it. I think what it's more likely is going to happen is that you're going to be seeing a lot more resources that feel different to each individual job. So it's not just going to be gauge filling or ball being filled in. You're going to be seeing different ways that they iterate on, how do I put it? Iterate on the increase in power over time. There are lots of ways to do it, lots of ways to stagger it, lots of ways to make generating it feel different, and that plays a pretty key role. And of course, how that gauge is actually used and impacts the fight is a big thing. There's plenty of room for them to do things. The question is, what will they do and how will they do it? All we know is that job identity is a key factor for 8.0. There's plenty of things they can do. The question is, what will they do? And that was kind of the key point that I made with that path to power thing. It's how do you get to the point of feeling more powerful, and how does that differ from the way other jobs get to the point of feeling more powerful? And I'll be honest, that's going to create discrepancies in jobs that I think they, as the development team, need to be okay with having. You just can't have every job be great at everything when you're trying to alter the path to power. Something's going to give, and the question is how it'll turn out. Hashtag Mondays with Mrhappy. Hey, Happy. Hi. Everything is going well. Glad to hear it. Let's see. Simple question. If the formula for jobs release stays the same, we should see a tank in a range. Instead of job speculations, what weapons would you want to see? I mean, I think it's just going to be dual crossbows or one big crossbow. And for tanks, I mean, there's like spear and shield. There's double shield. They can make up an entirely new weapon type. You know, they could do whatever they want. Like Sage, they could have given that type of weapon to a tank if they wanted to, and you can pull all 4 of them to form in front of you to create a shield. You know, like they could do whatever they want. They just make something up for all we know. Love to see chain flail. There's another one. 2-handed mace. There you go. Throwing darts. I don't know how I feel about darts. I don't feel like darts are a very impressive looking thing, but a crossbow, yeah, I could definitely see that happening. Hey everyone, hashtag Mondays with Mrhappy here. Okay, the hey everyone. So you got me because I was like, where's the hello? And I realized you used my hello against me. I like paying attention to what buttons all my team members are pressing when I mindlessly run my roulettes and such. One of the most common mistakes I see with ninjas is still using Doton on single target. Yeah, it's still a thing. Do you have any idea why it's such a common occurrence? Are there any old resources people still look at? Is it just misinformation? Changes happen in 6.1. Meanwhile, I see people adjusting the changes after that just fine. So the key reason why single target Doton has been such a thing is because people do not know how damage over time works in the game. In a game like World of Warcraft, for example, there's a set amount of time that each skill has and how often it ticks, and then with haste, that speed actually goes up. most people don't understand that the potency that damage over time skills do is not done per second, it's done per 3 seconds. So it's very easy for someone even doing the calculations to be like, hey, this does this much damage per tick, and just assume that it ticks every 1 second instead of becoming informed. So that's one of the leading reasons. This has been a reason why single target Doton has been a thing since Ninja's inception, since the day that Ninja came out, was people assuming that simple fact, that simple misinformed piece of information about it, thinking that Doton ticked every second. So that's largely what it is. As for I hear a different BGM, I like my chill BGM. The big thing is that I buy the rights to music whenever I have to, and you know, I don't want to buy new songs all the time. Like, I have other ones, but just for like a chill, just kind of occupying noise in the background sound. The one that I have works really well. All the other ones are like kind of a little over. They lean towards like certain emotions, I think is the right way for me to put it. I think, meaning that like, how do I put it? They're like too goofy or too emotional or too excited for like what's happening. And so I tend to end up avoiding using those ones for many things outside of like very specific edits. And even those are like seldom, like a couple times a year at most. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, hello, and well met. Same to you. Hope you're having a wonderful day. You too. 2 questions. So I was watching your job retrospectives and you mentioned execute skills. If execute skills return, would you rather it be a new button for existing jobs or an effect added to existing buttons? I'd rather it be its own button, to be completely honest with you. I think that having that button that lights up and only becomes active, I mean, again, you could technically achieve that by overwriting an existing skill, but I feel like that excitement of knowing that your button that is only active when you're getting really close to killing an enemy, on smaller enemies, it's just a nice little bit of damage to help finish them off. On larger and like the full boss, it's almost like that little bit of extra excitement, you know, that last little push that, you know, you need to like get into the zone. You know, it's that indicator that, hey, this is happening, and you know, we're almost there. Like, we literally just need to finish off what we're doing, and we're pretty much all good. Like, I don't know, that prospect excites me a decent bit, and that would be the thing that I would really want to capture personally. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but that's how I feel about it at the very least. And 2, I can't remember where, but you mentioned offhandedly that creative business unit 3 teams should try increasing the number of bosses. I've said that like a billion times. You don't have to find one spot. I've said that a ton of times. How do you think a raid tier with more than 4 bosses would pan out with a less steep learning curve between the second and third boss? Like, honestly, by the end of it, the final boss probably wouldn't be all that different in terms of, you know, the overall feel of it, but the curbing of the difficulty and also just feeling like you're getting more content out of a raid tier would, I think, go a long way, because I think that's one of the biggest problems we have in Final Fantasy XIV is that our game does too many, well, in terms of end game and getting players into end game, there are too many steep jumps that you have to take in order to actually get into end game content. Like, you have to be willing. It's like every single time you go into like something new, you're basically jumping into a new deep end. It's very hard to steadily learn. You just got to throw on your little floaties and hope that nobody else is trying to drown you. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Apps, you doing all right? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Been watching your content for just about 10 years now. Find your channel from the new player guides back in Heaven's Word as Healer Happy, if you remember that. I do remember that. First time asking a question, it's about Glam. Oh, well, I can't wait to be useless on this. So I've been thinking about the announcement of unrestricted Glamour at 7.4 about how they might be able to manage inventory and Glamour plates. You think it's feasible to designate a Glamour plate to each job individually, similar to how portraits are done, and save that plate and save the 20 plates that are attached to the Glamour dresser for whatever reason? Also, to save inventory space and headaches, could they introduce a system being able to convert any piece into a glam sphere, essentially turning it into a registerable, similar to mounts, fashion accessories? I mean, they could do that, but then there's the annoyance of having to pull it out and put it back. I mean, unless they allow you to do that, and then the new system allows you to pull from it directly, which is effectively all anyone's asking for anyway. People are just asking for the ability to effectively log your glams, and maybe that requires, you know, adding an item flag that turns it into a new item that has a new storage system designed for it, like as long as that's feasible with the item code that's there now, sure. Like the problem is no one's missing ideas. Like everyone has ideas. The problem is we're all operating with the ideas that we think make sense because we think we understand how the game's item code works and how those systems, but we don't. So it's like every idea could theoretically be a good one. There's no plan, but like plates, I think is a problem. The fact that there aren't more plates now means that just deciding to have 20 plates for a job or whatever, or, having a plate that's specific to each other, like that doesn't. If they're unable to release more plates as is because that system is too like heavy on the game itself, then that idea doesn't make any more sense because it's not any more. It's just the same amount of weight as just adding plates. You know what I mean? So it all comes down to we don't know enough about how the game actually functions and how it works to make an educated suggestion. We can just throw ideas out and see like maybe it's one they determine is actually possible. And that's, all you can realistically hope for at this point. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello and happy late Saturday afternoon. Just a guess. Incorrect. It is Sunday morning. Promise there's a question, but first I'm calling it now. We're going to fix those steps connecting Upper and Lower Lenosha in the final Allied Society quest. I mean, maybe, but I don't think so. I think it just is going to be weird because then some people can walk up the steps and some people can't. And they would basically have to alter how it even looks with no steps there to be able to make the change that adds steps, which I think is not going to be something they want to do, personally. As for the question, do you ride a bicycle? No. I actually did think about getting one, interestingly enough. I've thought of it several times over the years, but I'm just going to get a car. I'm not going to get a bicycle. I don't really want to ride a bicycle. I don't know. I just don't want to. I haven't ridden a bicycle in I don't know, since I was 12, I think. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Haps. No hello, I can already tell. Yoshida's odd reborn quote, do you think we may see them address the odd combat animation delay? I know we're used to it, makes the combat feel like. I'm not sure what you mean, the combat / animation delay. Are you referring to when a boss casts an ability and that we do not, the effect not lining up? Because for the most part, you could also, unless you're referring to the activation time of a skill, I'm not sure I understand what you're even referring to because it's not innately clear from the question which specific thing you're referring to. Hashtag Mr. Monday Happies. Hey there, Haps. Mr. Haps. Quick question. Hi, by the way. Why haven't you unlocked the esthetician? I don't care. I have no sense of fashion. I don't really care how my character looks. He's going to be covered in armor all the time anyway. And I'm perfectly content when I look at that character, go, yeah, that's fine. And I don't care. There's just no reason. I don't care what hairstyle I have. Shit, I was just trimming my hair for years and years and years because I just wanted to not have the convenience of having too much hair. I was like, that's too much shampoo, and then it gets really dry. And so I was like, let me keep it short. Let me buzz it down to a 2 every time I get a hair. It's because I just don't care. I just want it to be easy and convenient. You know what's easy and convenient? Never altering my character's hairstyle. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps. Hi. Maybe I understood it wrong, but what did you mean by collecting new tomestones right after patch is available on December 16th? We have new tomes. New weekly cap tomes. So we have to go get them. But I also don't know if was I talking about that or was I talking about the fact that you can get cap tomestones. There's a 2-hour window between when tomestones reset and when Savage releases on January 6th or January 5th or whichever day it was. And you have 2 hours you can farm that. I don't know what the context was, but we have the new cap tomestones. I get a new capped tombstone every even numbered patch. So got to get them. I don't need to get them that morning, but I'm going to get them, overall. That's why I was right after the patch, I was like, that sounds like something I would say in regards to the right before Savage releases, like the 2 hours before. But I don't know. But either way, yeah, new tomes got to get them. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, Haps. Hi, and a few extra hellos. Thanks. Yeah, we do need one already today. Been watching your stuff since the end of Shadowbringers, but to my memory, first time leaving a comment. Maybe. So yeah, I don't know. I'd recognize the name. I just maybe. I was curious if there are any other FF side games that you're dreading on equal level, the likes of 10 and 2. Oh no, there's a game that's a million times worse than 10 and 10-2 to Platinum. The worst Final Fantasy Platinum side game is by far the Japanese game Final Fantasy Dragon Quest Itadeki Street. It's basically Mario Party, but some of the achievements require you to play with other people, and that's very hard to do for a Japanese game that's some years old at this point. Effectively, the strategy for platinuming that one is I need to get a Vita, and I need to basically make lobbies with myself on my PlayStation and my Vita simultaneously, and I need to do that in order to complete them. That's a 400-hour platinum, as far as I know. Is by far the worst one. I also think Chocobo Mystery Dungeon is going to be kind of a pain, but I'm really looking forward to playing that again. I have played it a bit, and I thought it was fantastic, but I didn't finish it. So that's one that I'm genuinely dreading. I actually kind of want to get working on that again this week. I also want to get working on the Evilise/12 video. I don't want there to be too long of a delay before the next one. But that's a big one. Series to spark my interest in trophy hunting, not just FF games, but just any games I end up picking. Yeah, I usually try to platinum most games. I still have to finish Dragon Quest 2 and get that platinum for 1 and 2 combined done, so I can have 1, 2, and 3 all platinumed. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello. Hi. Over the past few years, I've been running events for my FC where we take people through some of the simpler legacy extremes, synced min item level no echo, as an approachable way to introduce them to challenging content without throwing them into the deep end. I've come to the conclusion that the game really needs to start making low-end, difficult content again. Fights like Odin, Susanoo EX, and the original 3 ARR Primal EXs are a way to onboard new casual players into higher-end content. Where there's a definite increase in damage output over normal mode, the players can actually die from failing mechanics, but little added mechanical complexity beside the odd tank swap or stack spread, very few opportunities. Okay, so earlier I spoke about the game not having the best tools to onboard people because you have to take huge difficulty spikes. On the flip side, if your design philosophy has changed over the years, and it has changed drastically from A Realm Reborn, it's kind of a... How do I put this? It's good to get someone into higher end content and get them feeling like they can do it, but the skill set required for old content from years ago and the skill set required for modern content that's meant to represent the same difficulty but in a different era in time can actually be more of a problem, because if they specifically just learn things that the game once did but doesn't really do anymore, and we don't know if there's an inclination, like non-telegraphed tank busters, like mountain. Not Mountain Buster, Rock Buster on Titan Extreme, for example, and things like that, then unfortunately somebody can be somewhat okay at the older things, but then when they get into the newer things, it almost doesn't feel like they learned anything from the thing before. So it depends on the person, because people handle just every situation gets handled differently by people. So, this may or may not apply, but I agree to some capacity, and they actually still do. There are some fights that are barely different from their normals and their extremes. At the same time, you need the player to understand what is actually expected of the player in the current landscape of Final Fantasy XIV's endgame. So you do need them, being able to solve what are more frequently used mechanics nowadays, and not what we had before, where in Titan, there's really isn't much of the rock patterns are stricter. There's more weight of the lands. They do 2 back-to-back weight of the lands. There's bigger landslides. Fundamentally, players need to be kind of not forced, but they need to be practicing and seeing something that is representative of their current era of the game. So I'm in agreement, but not to the simplicity levels of those old styles of content. I feel like it needs to still represent current Final Fantasy XIV, or it's not going to help as much for new players that don't have an FC that are running them through things. So when played back then with Sword of Fight's current, did you noticeably help onboard? I mean, I just did more PF content back then. I did more PUG content, and that innately helps people onboard. I hate PFing nowadays because do I really need to have a reason? And it's not, again, it's not that they stopped making that type of content. It's that their design philosophy back then was different than the design philosophy now. And that's the key difference, which is why I make the statements that I make. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hi. I was watching your job identity video. Got me thinking about how tank busters are still something they can improve in fight design. Absolutely agree. So my question is, what you think makes a good tank buster? As a tank player, I feel like it needs to be flashy and in some way not be invulnerable, either by being long like Valley or by putting a dot on you like P8S. Makes me feel like I'm doing something black. I agree that tank invulns have kind of ruined the effectiveness of more basic tank busters. And I'm honestly on the side of tank invulns not working on some things. Like, if they feel like it's a compromise to their fight design, I would prefer they make the tank busters not work on said thing that they're concerned with. Like, I hate how often we just ignore mechanics with tank invulns instead of actually doing them. I just don't think it's healthy design for the game. I think there's a few different things that can make for a good tank buster. I think gradually scaling damage over a longer period of time, forcing tank swaps, is something that we have lost. We've gotten so much to the point where you get hit by a tank buster that is not super frequent, but your sole purpose is to give the boss to the other tank, and then they tank the boss now because you have a like a vuln that makes you get one shot if you get hit by the boss. You know, you can have things like, oh, I have one vuln stack, I have two vuln stacks, I have three vuln stacks. Okay, we can swap at 3 or 4, or maybe if the other tank died to a mechanic, we can come up with some way of extending it, or like, you know, coming up with another plan. When you have stacking debuff management on the tanks, and then more frequent tank busters, you have to think about the way your tank cooldowns are spread out more, how you apply your cooldowns to a 0 stack, a 1 stack, a 2 stack. And then your invuln doesn't become this like I can ignore it thing. It becomes this sort of like tool that allows you to, like, you never really need it, but you can use it. But because there's so many of these tank busters, you know, you're not using it to like completely skip a mechanic. You might like use it to hold on to the boss for 1 extra stack because it's so fast that doing it once doesn't, doing your invuln doesn't mean that you're going to lose all your stacks and then just get to hold the boss for another, you know, 2.5 to 3 minutes. And then you don't even need to do a tank swap. I think things like that, where like we've lost like personality in tank busters like that, where it feels like, you know, you're really only dealing with one of many that you're about to deal with. And that's kind of why Quantum 40 feels pretty good as a tank, because there are so many instances of high tank damage that both the tank and the healer actually feel pretty pressured by a lot of the skills that are in there. You don't need that level of pressure, but the point is that the tank actually feels like every cooldown is such a valuable resource that they can utilize, and that needs to be utilized in a way that makes the most sense for their individual job. And that becomes a big thing in terms of how the jobs themselves can use things. And sometimes this is a case where a fight's design can help a job feel like it has more or less identity. When you're a warrior and a fight has a ton of tank busters and you have home gang, you genuinely feel like being a warrior is the right decision for you in that moment. And you're not just playing a tank and warrior happens to be a tank. You have the home gang, you have some of the sustain, like now suddenly you're playing a job that's built to deal with, you know, a 0, a 1 stack, a 2 stacker. You know, maybe they have an extra tool to deal with a buster that takes some pressure off the healer, or you have another one that may, you know, take a little bit more from the buster but has more party support. Like, you need fights that have those kinds of tank buster identities because they actually allow the rest of the party to feel like their individual job identities matter more as well. Tank busters are so immensely important to everything, but the people who will feel it first and foremost are the tanks, and those are the ones who want to feel it the most. And so that's just a couple of examples, but it's just making it so it's not so simple. Bust tank, other tank takes over, done. Make it more involved. Make it so there's responsibilities the tanks actually have to do. Dances like Valagar are a great example. Again, there's a lot of room for there to be, you know, frequency of buster and how that buster affects the tanks and how that then affects the party. It cascades on and on. And I think that there are plenty of ways they could. It's just a matter of actually doing it. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, how are you? I'm doing pretty good. Watch your video on how there might be a big rework of 14. I do say in that video to, you know, temper expectations. You know, translations are not always one-to-one, and I think that, you know, there's a bit of hyperbole involved. But yeah, I did caution people because I knew that statement was going to be out there. It's too much to hope that content will no longer get locked behind story. That's never going to happen. I'll tell you that right now. That's never going to happen. And I say never. It's the royal, like, I'm confident never, not the royal, it actually can't ever happen. No. What's more likely to happen is the ability to quickly get to the beginning of, like, a news story, meaning that all the things before that are now unlocked. Like, for example, let's say they give us a way to jump right into 8.0 story really quickly, and you don't have to do anything up to and through Dawn Trail in order to do it, right? I'm not saying that's what they'll do, but let's say they did that. That could subsequently unlock all the content that you already did. Now, of course, that's what a skip potion does, but I'm saying without a skip potion, they could potentially achieve something along those lines. So that's as close as you're ever really going to get. But I will say this, subsequently, whatever releases in 8.0, you're going to need 8.0's things done. Like, the game being a continuous story is a pretty big and important part of why it works the way that it works. And they're not just suddenly not going to do it that way. You know what I mean? So I do think it's a bit cope to just say, oh, they'll never need, you know, story again in order to, or like hoping never need story to unlock it. That's just not going to happen. It's just a matter of the severity of it that I think is at least a potential to maybe have some hope for. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Mr. Happy. Hi. Last week I asked about Puppet Master and you mentioned Yoshi considering it for a limited job. Yeah, it was kind of like one of those things they briefly brought up right when they were like first releasing Blue Mage. They're like, yeah, there's also Beast Tamer and Puppet Master. Like, if we wanted to do more limited jobs, you know, there's options. Should be interesting to make a video on how you think a limited Puppet Master. I don't even know, actually. Like, fundamentally, I kind of need to see Beastmaster to figure it out. Because I could... Sure, yeah, customizing the parts and like whatever you're doing with the puppet requiring different customized parts, but you would need so much. Like, everything Puppet Master does would have to be in the vein of something like Mask Carnival to make that matter. Like, otherwise, it's like, I guess that wouldn't be that much different than customizing Blue Mage in a sense, but I feel like it would be even harder to feel the difference on your puppet. And the way that you go about collecting parts would have to be like considerably different. So I don't know. I really have to see how Beastmaster is done, because that's going to tell me what they're willing to do. And once I know what they're willing to do, it'll be easier to kind of come up with an idea of how you actually incorporate, you know, modifying the puppet and making that gameplay loop, A, worth releasing into the game at all, and B, fun in the first place, like fun in any capacity to begin with. I don't know that this is actually the last question, because I think the YouTube like section is a little weird now. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey Haps, how you doing? I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. Long time listener, first time poster. Do you have any thoughts on how the SC could manage the button bloat that Paladin had? Dude, I don't know what they're gonna. They honestly just gotta rework it, because Paladin is one of the few jobs for me that still feel. I think like Paladin, Samurai, and like maybe one other actually still feel bloated to me. It's pretty crazy. I think they just want them to have so many things for so many like fringe situations that like usually you can pretty safely like, you know, throw Shield Bash somewhere you don't need it until you're doing something where it's actually useful, and then put it in place of something else. But for the most part, yeah, no, Paladin has definitely had that issue, and I mean it's really just gonna have to be given less tools. I mean, that's really what it is. Like, they just can't have so many different buttons for so many different things. And maybe that's for the better. Maybe that leaves room for other jobs to feel like they can like get something that isn't already covered by them. You know, maybe that's the way to do it. I honestly, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting seeing how it actually works out. Yeah, I don't know. It's I don't know. It's there's just so many buttons. Like, I don't like, a lot of these are pretty good. Do I really want to not have them? Just gotta get rid of them and just be okay with it. Okay, no, that was the last question. Yeah, I guess because I have like top results like selected by default. At the bottom of the video, it now says something along the lines of like, oh, since you have the top option selected, you know, you'll just see the featured comments. I was like, am I missing a comment because of that? I checked and I'm not. It's just that when I switch it to recent, it just shows them in order from the beginning to last one, but I had all of them. They were all there. So I don't know. It's just YouTube making changes and us just being like, okay, I guess you can do that, but why? But why? Why? But that was going to be the last question for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Thank you for asking your questions. If you have one, don't forget you can ask it in the comment section of the video below. Adding a hashtag adds visibility, though. I mean, I do tend to at least check to see if there's questions that don't have the hashtag, but it's definitely ideal if you're going to ask a question if there is a hashtag, because then I can just look at it and be like, oh, okay. And then we can all be the honky-dory. Actually, you can be honky-dory. I'm happy. But anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this week. Thanks again to anyone who is participating over on the Patreon and supporting the channel. Any of the channel members that we have as well, thank you. And with that, I'll see you next week. Until then, have a happy Thanksgiving for any of you fellow US-bound people who celebrate it, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.